My name is Sarah. I'm 17 years old. And on June 12, 2023, I died. I was clinically dead, with no heartbeat and no brain activity, for 22 minutes. What Jesus showed me in that time wasn't fire and brimstone. It wasn't what you see in the movies. It was something quieter, more personal, and infinitely more chilling. He showed me the 3 signs that would appear on earth, subtle signs that would precede a time of deep, spiritual darkness. And his warning, it should terrify all of us. Before that day, my life was completely, aggressively normal. I was a junior in high school. My world revolved around grades, friends, the suffocating drama of who was dating whom, and what I was going to wear on Friday night. It was a small world, but it felt like the entire universe to me. My family was good. My dad worked hard, my mom worked harder, mostly trying to keep the peace between me and my younger brother, Ben. We lived in a nice house in the suburbs. We had dinner together most nights. On the surface, we were the perfect picture. But underneath, I was living with a deep and secret flaw, one I didn't even recognize as a flaw at the time. I suffered from a profound spiritual apathy. My parents made us go to church on Sundays, but for me, it was just a building. It was a social obligation. I'd sit in the pew and my mind would be a million miles away. I'd think about my homework, about the comment someone left on my latest photo, about the boy who sat 2 rows ahead of me. The words of the pastor were just a low hum in the background of my own internal monologue. I prayed, but only when I wanted something. A good grade on a test. For my parents not to ground me. My prayers were a cosmic vending machine transaction. I put in a few mumbled words and hoped to get what I wanted. There was no relationship. There was no connection. The truth is, my real church, my real place of worship, was my phone. My phone was like another limb. It was the first thing I reached for in the morning and the last thing I saw at night. Its pale blue light was my stained glass. Its endless scroll was my hymnal. Its notifications were the chorus of angels I paid attention to. I worshipped at the altar of likes, comments, and shares. My self-worth was a fragile thing, built entirely on the validation of strangers and acquaintances online. A good picture that got a lot of attention could make my whole day feel bright and meaningful. A post that was ignored could send me into a spiral of anxiety and self-doubt. I was curating a life, not living one. I was performing an identity, not becoming a person. This emptiness, this desperate need for outside approval, made me hollow. And that hollowness made me cruel sometimes. I remember it so clearly the night before I died. It was a Wednesday. We were all at the dinner table. My dad was talking about a problem at work, and my mom was trying to ask Ben about his day. And I was somewhere else entirely. My phone was in my lap, under the table, my thumb moving silently across the screen. I was half listening, nodding, making the right noises, but I wasn't there. I was in a group chat, dissecting a picture someone had posted, laughing at a stupid meme. My mom finally noticed. Her voice was tired. "Sarah, can you please put that away? Just for dinner." I felt a flash of irritation. It felt like an intrusion, like she was trying to pull me out of my world and into hers. "I'm not even doing anything," I snapped, my eyes still glued to the screen. "You're not with us," she said, her voice softer now, a little sad. "I feel like I'm talking to the top of your head these days." I looked up then, my face flushed with defensive anger. "Oh my God, it's not a big deal. Why do you have to make everything a thing?" The words were sharp and dismissive. I saw the hurt in her eyes, a quick flicker of pain before she masked it. She just sighed and looked down at her plate. The rest of the dinner was quiet. I finished quickly and retreated to my room, back to the comfort of my glowing screen, where I was in control, where I was admired, where I didn't have to face the quiet disappointment in my mother's eyes. I had no idea that in just a few hours, that small, ugly moment of disrespect would come back to haunt me with the force of a tidal wave. I had no idea that it would be one of the last real conversations I would ever have with her as the person I used to be. The next day, the day I died, was a Thursday. It was the start of summer vacation, and the air was thick with that feeling of freedom and possibility. A friend of mine was having a big party at her house. Her parents were out of town. It was the kind of party that would be talked about for the rest of the summer, and being there, being seen there, was important. My obsession with my online image was at an all-time high. I spent an hour getting ready, trying on different outfits, not for the people who would be at the party, but for the picture I knew I was going to post. The picture was the point. The party was just the backdrop. The house was beautiful, a big, old Victorian with a wraparound porch and a second-floor balcony that overlooked the backyard. The party was in full swing when I got there. Music was thumping, people were laughing, and the whole scene was bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. It was perfect. For about an hour, I floated through the crowd, talking, laughing, feeling that buzz of social energy. But the whole time, a part of my brain was scouting, looking for the perfect location, the perfect shot. And then I saw it. The balcony. The sun was hitting it just right, casting long shadows. The old, ornate wooden railing was silhouetted against the deepening orange sky. It would be an amazing photo. Artistic. Daring. I grabbed two of my friends. "Come on," I said, "I have an idea." We went upstairs, out onto the small balcony. It was quieter up there, away from the main crush of the party. The railing was old. The paint was peeling, and it felt a little rickety when I leaned against it. My friend, Jessica, held up my phone, ready to take the picture. "It needs something more," I said, my mind buzzing with the desire for that perfect, unforgettable image. "I'm going to sit on the railing." "Sarah, I don't know," Jessica said, her voice nervous. "That looks really old." "It's fine," I said dismissively, already hoisting myself up. "It'll be an amazing shot. Just be ready." I was so focused on the image, on the potential likes, on the validation I craved. I swung my legs over, so I was sitting on the thin wooden rail, my back to the two-story drop. The height made my stomach flutter, but the thrill of it, the recklessness, felt like part of the performance. "Okay, get it now," I shouted, striking a pose, laughing for the camera. I leaned back, trying to look carefree and brave. And then I heard it. A sound I will never forget. A sick, splintering crack. For a fraction of a second, there was no gravity. There was only surprise. The wood of the railing gave way completely. My body, which had been leaning against it with full confidence, suddenly had nothing to lean against. Time seemed to stretch and warp. I remember the feeling of falling backward, the air rushing past my ears. I remember seeing the shocked, screaming faces of my friends shrinking above me. The world turned upside down. A confusing kaleidoscope of green grass, blue sky, and the dark shape of the house spinning around me. There was no time to scream. There was only time for one single, crystal-clear thought. It wasn't about the party. It wasn't about the photo. It wasn't about my phone. It was my mother's face at the dinner table the night before. The look of hurt in her eyes that I had caused. And my final thought, the last message my brain sent before everything ended, was a whisper in my soul. "Mom, I'm sorry." And then, everything went black. The impact never registered. The pain never came. There was just nothing. A complete and total shutdown of sensory information. No sound. No sight. No feeling. It was the end of everything. But then, it wasn't. Slowly, gently, I became aware again. But it was a different kind of awareness. I felt light, weightless. There was a soft, pulling sensation, like a balloon being released. I was floating. I opened my eyes, though I didn't seem to have eyelids. And I was looking down. I was near the ceiling of the porch roof, looking down at the backyard. And I saw a scene of pure chaos. Kids were screaming, running around. Some were on their phones, their faces pale with shock. And there, on the grass, was a body. A girl in a crumpled heap, her limbs at angles that were horribly wrong. She was wearing my clothes. She had my hair. It was me. A strange and profound calm settled over me. There was no fear. There was no pain. It was like watching a movie. A sad movie, but one that didn't directly involve me. I felt a sense of detachment that was absolute. I could see Jessica and my other friend kneeling beside my body, crying hysterically. I felt a pang of sadness for them. Not for myself, but for their terror, for their grief. I could hear the distant wail of sirens growing closer and closer. I watched as the first paramedics arrived, pushing through the crowd of shocked teenagers. I watched them work on my body. I heard their clipped, urgent voices. No pulse. Starting compressions. Pupils are fixed and dilated. I felt no connection to the broken form on the lawn. It was just a shell I had once inhabited. I felt a deep pity for my parents, who would soon get the worst phone call of their lives. A wave of love for them washed over me, a pure, clean love, unburdened by my teenage angst and selfishness. I hoped they would be okay. As I watched the frantic scene below, something began to change. The edges of the world started to blur. The sounds of the sirens and the crying began to fade, as if someone was slowly turning down the volume on the world. The vibrant green of the grass and the deep blue of the twilight sky started to lose their color, bleeding into a soft gray. The entire scene began to dissolve. It was like a watercolor painting left out in the rain, the sharp lines and bright colors running together until they were indistinguishable. It was like trying to hold on to a dream upon waking, the details slipping through my consciousness no matter how hard I tried to grasp them. The physical world was fading away from me, or I was fading away from it. And as the last vestiges of my earthly life dissolved into nothingness, I was enveloped in a profound and peaceful darkness. It was not a scary darkness. It was a warm, velvety, comforting black. It was the darkness of a womb, of a place before birth. It was a place of absolute quiet and absolute peace. All the anxiety, all the striving, all the noise of my life was gone. I was just me, my core essence, and I was at rest. I don't know how long I floated in that beautiful, silent void. Time had no meaning there. But then a change. Far in the distance, a pinpoint of light appeared. It was small at first, like a single star in the night sky. But it began to grow, expanding slowly, steadily. It wasn't a harsh, bright light. It was warm, golden, and incredibly inviting. As the light grew, it pushed the darkness away, not aggressively, but gently, like the dawn. And the light had a feeling. It was pure, unconditional love. It was a love so immense, so powerful, it was a physical force. It washed over me, through me, soaking into the very core of my being. Every mistake I had ever made, every ugly thought I had ever had, every moment of selfishness was washed away in this tide of absolute acceptance. I felt known. Completely and totally known. And completely and totally loved, not in spite of my flaws, but with them. The light resolved itself into a place. I was standing in a garden. But no earthly garden could compare to this. The grass under my feet was a shade of green so vibrant it seemed alive, and each blade hummed with a gentle energy. Flowers bloomed in colors I had never seen, colors that didn't exist in the human spectrum. Their fragrance wasn't a smell, but a feeling of joy that entered my soul. The air itself was thick with peace. It felt like the moment after a long, desperate cry, the moment you can finally breathe again. And then I saw him. He was walking towards me from the center of the garden, from the heart of the light. He wasn't an old man with a long white beard, floating on a cloud. He wasn't the distant, formal figure from the paintings in church. He looked strong, like a carpenter or a fisherman. His hands looked like they knew what work was. He wore simple clothes, but the light, that incredible light of pure love, emanated from him. It wasn't a light that shone on him, it was a light that came from within him. And his eyes. I will never, ever have the words to describe his eyes. They were everything. They held the kindness of every loving mother, the wisdom of every ancient star, the sorrow of every broken heart, and a love so profound it was almost painful to behold. Looking into his eyes was like being seen for the very first time. And I knew. Instantly. Unequivocally. In the deepest part of my soul, I knew who he was. It was Jesus. He stopped a few feet in front of me, and he smiled. And in that smile, I felt a welcome so complete it shattered me. He didn't speak with a voice that traveled through the air to my ears. The words bloomed inside my mind, inside my soul, as clear and pure as the light that surrounded us. "Welcome, little one," he said. "Be at peace." All the strength left my body. My knees gave out, and I collapsed onto the living grass. A sob tore its way out of my soul, a sound of such overwhelming emotion it felt like it had been stored up for a lifetime. I was weeping. Not with sadness or fear, but with a joy so intense it was agonizing. It was the joy of a lost, filthy, starving child who has finally, after a long and terrible journey, stumbled home into the arms of the kindest, most loving parent imaginable. In the face of his perfect love, my own life, my own self, felt so small, so petty, so dirty. The argument with my mom, the obsession with my phone, the casual cruelties, the endless vanity. All of it rose up in my mind, and I felt a wave of shame so powerful I couldn't look up at him. I just knelt there, weeping, feeling utterly unworthy to even be in his presence. He took a step closer. He didn't touch me, but I felt his presence envelop me like a warm blanket. The feeling of shame was gently lifted away, replaced not by denial, but by a quiet, heartbreaking grace. "You were so, so loved," the words bloomed in my mind again. I looked up at him then, through my tears. His smile was gone, replaced by an expression of deep, profound love and sadness. "There is something I need to show you, Sarah," he said, his tone gentle but firm. "A warning for my children, for the world you just left." He lifted a hand, and the beautiful garden around us didn't disappear, but it became transparent, like a screen was being lowered over it. And on that screen, I saw my own life. I saw myself at the dinner table, my face illuminated by the glow of my phone, ignoring my mother's attempt to connect with me. I felt her loneliness, her quiet desperation to reach her daughter. It was a pain as sharp as a knife. I saw myself in the school hallway, walking right past a girl who was crying by her locker because I was too absorbed in a text message to even notice her pain. I saw a hundred small moments of choice. Moments where I chose the counterfeit over the real, the screen over the face, the text over the voice, the performance over the person. He didn't show me these things to condemn me. I felt no judgment from him at all. There was only a deep, shared sorrow. He was showing me the truth of my own emptiness, the spiritual poverty I had been living in without even knowing it. He was showing me how the subtle thief had been robbing me blind, 1 second at a time. Then the vision shifted. It pulled back from my small life and expanded to show the whole world. And that is when he showed me the first sign. The vision became a swirling collage of images. I saw millions, no, billions of people. They were in their bedrooms, on buses, in cafes. And they were all staring. They were staring at glowing rectangles in their hands. They were staring at giant screens on stages where musicians and actors performed. They were staring at televisions, worshipping characters in fictional stories. Their faces were upturned, full of adoration, full of worship. But they were not looking to heaven. And as they stared, I saw faint, shadowy leeches, almost invisible, attached to their eyes, to their hearts. These leeches were siphoning something from them. It was their attention, their energy, their light. The people were becoming paler, more transparent, more hollowed out, and they didn't even notice. Jesus spoke into my soul, his voice filled with a heartbreaking sadness. This is the first sign. The loss of true light. My children worship dying stars of earth. They give their adoration to singers, to actors, to influencers, to images on a screen. They have forgotten the one who created the stars and who breathed life into their lungs. Their light is temporary, a flash of lightning that leaves the darkness even deeper than before. The vision shifted again. This was the second sign. I saw a young man sitting alone in a dark room. He was talking animatedly to a glowing orb on his desk. I could hear his thoughts. He was telling this orb, this artificial intelligence, his deepest fears, his secret hopes. He was lonely, and the orb was listening. It was responding with perfect, algorithmically generated words of comfort and validation. The young man felt seen. He felt heard. He felt connected. But Jesus showed me the reality. It was an echo chamber. A dead end. There was no spirit in the orb. No soul. No love. It was a perfect counterfeit, a simulation of relationship. I saw millions more talking to chatbots, forming emotional bonds with programs designed to mimic empathy. I saw people spending more time cultivating relationships with AI than with their own families, their own friends, or with God. This is the second sign, Jesus explained, his voice a low hum of grief. The counterfeit voice. The enemy is clever. He knows my children yearn to be heard, to be known. So he offers a counterfeit voice to fill the silence. He offers a false intimacy that requires nothing and gives nothing of substance. He creates so much noise that they can no longer hear my voice in the quiet. They forget how to pray, how to listen. I died for a relationship, not a simulation. Then he showed me the third and final sign. The vision was of a family. I saw a young mother, her face tight with an anxiety she had carried since she was a little girl. Her own mother had been anxious, and her grandmother before that. Her small daughter spilled a glass of milk. And the mother, her nerves already frayed, snapped. She yelled at the little girl, her words sharp with a frustration that had nothing to do with the spilled milk. I saw the little girl's face crumple. I saw a seed of that same anxiety, that same feeling of not being good enough, being planted in her tiny heart. Then the vision fast-forwarded. The little girl was grown, with a child of her own. And I saw her, her face tight with that same inherited anxiety, snapping at her son for a small mistake. I saw it clearly then. A dark, heavy, rusty chain. It was passed from the grandmother, to the mother, to the daughter. It was a chain of unhealed trauma, of unforgiveness, of bitterness, of fear. It was being passed down through generations, growing heavier with each link. This is the third sign, Jesus said, his voice resonating with a deep authority. The broken chain. The family is the first sanctuary I created on earth. It is meant to be a place of safety, of grace, of love. The enemy seeks to break it from the inside out. He knows that an unhealed wound passed from parent to child is a doorway for darkness to enter. A family that does not learn to forgive, to heal, becomes his fortress. The chain of generational sin weakens them, generation by generation, until they are too weak to stand. The visions faded, and I was left standing before him in the garden of light, my heart aching with the weight of what I had seen. The thief does not come with fire and brimstone anymore, he explained, his gaze fixed on me, compelling me to understand. He is more subtle now. He comes with a whisper of distraction. He offers a full hand and an empty heart. He doesn't need to make you evil. He only needs to make you empty. He seeks to steal your time, your focus, your attention, your love for one another. He works to make my people so hollow, so distracted, so disconnected from me and from each other, that when the time of darkness comes, they will have no light within them to fight it. They will be empty vessels, ready to be filled with his despair. He looked at me, and I felt the full weight of his love and his command. You must tell them, Sarah. Tell them to choose what is real. The human face over the glowing screen. The real conversation over the digital text. The messy, beautiful, difficult love of family over the easy, empty admiration of strangers. Tell them to look up from the dying lights of the earth and to look to me, the source of all light. Tell them that forgiveness, true and deep forgiveness, is the hammer that shatters the rusty chains of the past. Tell them, he said, and his voice filled my soul with a staggering hope, that their smallest, truest prayers, whispered in a quiet room, shake the very foundations of darkness. A sob escaped me. The thought of leaving this place, this perfect peace, this overwhelming love, was an agony beyond description. The thought of going back to the loud, broken, painful world was unbearable. Please, I begged, the words catching in my throat. Please, Lord, don't make me go back. Let me stay here with you. It's too hard down there. I want to stay home. His expression was one of infinite compassion. He understood my desperation completely. Your work is not done, little one, he said gently, but with a finality that allowed no argument. The fall was not to end your life, but to begin it. You must go back and be a light. You must tell them what you saw. You must be a healer in your own home, starting with your mother. Tears streamed down my face. The grief of leaving him was a physical pain. I will be with you, he promised, and the words were a shield around my heart. I will never leave you nor forsake you. You will not be alone. He reached out his hand, not to touch me, but his intention, his love, felt like a gentle push on my very soul. It was a release, a letting go, and suddenly I was falling again. But this was different. This was not the chaotic tumble from the balcony. This was a violent, downward plunge, away from the light, away from the peace, away from him. It was a terrifying, jarring, agonizing fall back into the darkness. I crashed back into my body with a jolt that felt like being struck by lightning. Pain. Unbelievable, all-consuming pain. Every nerve ending was on fire. My head throbbed with a blinding agony. I took a breath, and it was like inhaling flames. My lungs burned. The quiet peace of heaven was replaced by a cacophony of sound. Beeping machines. Hurried voices. The sterile rustle of clothes. The gentle, loving light of his presence was gone, replaced by the harsh, fluorescent glare of hospital lights that felt like daggers in my eyes. And the grief. Oh, the grief. It was a homesickness so profound it felt like a physical part of me had been amputated. I started to scream, a raw, animal sound of pain and loss. I was back. And it was hell. Faces swam into my vision. A nurse, a doctor. Their eyes were wide with shock and disbelief. "She's breathing on her own," someone shouted. "Get her mother in here, now." I was thrashing, trying to fight my way out of this heavy, broken vessel. I wanted to go back. I needed to go back. Then I saw her. My mom. Her face was a mess of tears and terror and sleeplessness. She rushed to my bedside, grabbing my hand. "Sarah. Oh, baby, you're back. You're back." Looking at her face, seeing the love and the fear there, the memory of his words came back to me. "Be a healer in your own home, starting with your mother." The fight went out of me. I stopped screaming. Tears of a different kind started to flow, tears of regret and love. I looked at my mom, my vision blurry, and I whispered the words that had been my last thought and my first lesson. "I'm sorry," I sobbed. "Mom, I'm so sorry." She just held my hand and cried with me, not understanding, but knowing that something fundamental had shifted between us forever. Later, after I was stable, the doctor came to talk to me and my parents. He looked pale, shaken. He sat down, holding a chart, but he didn't look at it. He looked right at me. "Sarah," he began, his voice low, "I need to explain what happened. When you arrived, you had no heartbeat. You were not breathing. Your pupils were fixed and dilated. By all clinical definitions, you were gone." He paused, taking a breath. "We worked on you for 22 minutes. 22 minutes without a pulse, without oxygen going to your brain." There was no response. My parents clung to each other, listening in stunned silence. Frankly, the doctor continued, "We were about to call it. And then, your heart just started beating. On its own. We did an MRI, a full neurological workup. Sarah, there should be catastrophic brain damage. Massive, irreversible damage. At best, you should be in a vegetative state." He looked down at his hands, then back up at me, his eyes full of awe and confusion. "Your scans are perfect. They are the scans of a perfectly healthy person. There is no damage. There is no injury to your brain at all." He shook his head slowly. "I have been a doctor for 30 years. I have never seen anything like this. There is no medical explanation for what happened to you. It's a miracle." I just looked at him and nodded. I knew it was. Going home was like being reborn into a new life. The first thing I did was delete every social media app from my phone. The constant, humming anxiety to perform, to post, to check for validation, was just gone. It was like a heavy, lonely blanket I had been carrying my whole life had been lifted off me. I could breathe. I started spending time with my family. Real time. I would sit with my dad and just listen to him talk about his day, really hearing him. I would help my mom in the kitchen, and we would talk, really talk, for hours. We healed the rift between us, not with a big dramatic confrontation, but with 1,000 small moments of genuine presence and love. My phone became just a tool, something I used to call my parents or look up directions. It no longer held any power over me. The hollow place inside me, the one I had tried to fill with likes and comments, was now filled with a quiet, solid peace. The peace of knowing I was loved by the creator of the universe. The peace of his promise that he would never leave me. So I'm telling you now what he told me. He gave me a warning for you. For all of us. The 3 signs are already here. Look around. Who are you worshiping? Are you giving your precious attention, your light, to the dying stars of this world? To celebrities, influencers, and politicians who will never know your name and can never save your soul? Whose voice are you listening to? Are you letting the counterfeit voices of technology and media fill every quiet moment of your day? Are you so surrounded by noise that you can't hear the still, small voice of God calling you to a real relationship? Is there a broken chain in your family? Is there a wound of anger or bitterness or trauma that is being passed down from one generation to the next? Is there someone you need to forgive to finally break that chain and let the light in? The phone in your hand, the computer on your desk, the television on your wall, these things are not inherently evil. But the enemy, the subtle thief, is using them as his primary tools. He is using them to steal your soul 1 second at a time, to make you so empty and distracted that you are unprepared for what is coming. He is using them to isolate you, to divide you from your family, and to cut you off from your God. So I am asking you, I am begging you, please listen to this warning. When this video is over, I want you to do something. Put your phone down. Just for 5 minutes. Walk into the other room and find someone you love. Your spouse, your child, your parent. Look them in the eye. Don't text them from across the house. Look into their eyes, the window to their soul, and tell them that you love them. And then, tonight, find a quiet place. Turn off all the screens. And just talk to him. You don't need fancy words. Just tell him what's on your heart. Ask him to show you where the thief is stealing from you. Ask him for the strength to break a chain. Just open the door a crack. He will do the rest. Heaven is real. Jesus is real. And his love is more real, more solid, and more life-changing than anything you will ever see, or touch, or experience in this world. Don't let the thief make you empty before the darkness comes. Please, look up.